Hey, thanks for checking out Press Pause with Vig Villain. I'm Jeff. The villain is at a court-mandated Pilates class. Now, I know when he's here, usually the channel is about Al Pacino-based cosplay, but this time we're going to talk about gaming news. One news, singular, just one story that's cropped up, and it's been kind of bothering me for a couple of days. Wanted to kind of explore it, analyze it, critique it. Let's get into it. Okay, so this all kicks off with Baldur's Gate 3 from Larian Studios. Larian is the team behind Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2, and obviously most recently we have I'm over here. We have Baldur's Gate 3, which has been a huge smashing hit for them. All right, we're talking top 10 list for concurrent players on Steam, well over 800,000 concurrent players. They still have a PS5 release coming next month and then an Xbox release in 2024, meaning not only has this game exploded off the start, it's likely to have a long tail on console. It's a great success and it should be celebrated for that. However, an independent developer put out a Twitter thread, an X thread, before the game even launched, where he warned gamers not to get their standards raised for future RPGs. Now, this is a bad take. But like I said, it's from an indie developer. I wasn't familiar with his work. According to the IGN video, he's won a BAFTA. They have a game coming out called El Paso Elsewhere. I've got it on screen now, which to me looks quite interesting. But obviously, this is not something anyone paying attention is going to compare to a AAA game like Baldur's Gate 3. What happens next is what makes it newsworthy, because people tweet stuff all the time and it gets just ignored, right? Whether they're gamers or developers, right? People are people. You can have a bad take. However, IGN, the largest gaming publication there is, picked up this thread and made a very angry video that honestly, at the end of it, kind of feels like there's a call to arms for gamers to be upset with just AAA game developers in general, which I don't think is healthy for the industry. You know, you don't want to pit readers against authors, right? Gamers, in case you were wondering, we do need game developers to have games. And because of that, because IGN made this video that's kind of angry and really calls the whole AAA game scene out just based off Baldur's Gate, I think it's worth discussing because I don't know if it was a healthy response to how this is all shaken out. And I'm also just a little bit annoyed I have to talk about Baldur's Gate 3 because if you follow this channel at all, you know this was not a game I was interested in. I have not played this game, so I can't speak to its quality as far as if it is like the greatest game ever made. But I think I can speak to the general vibe, both from the Twitter thread and from the IGN response. So let's dive in first. All right, so this is the tweet from Zalavier. Before Baldur's Gate is even out, he says, like a lot of people, I'm deeply excited about what the lovely folks at Larian accomplished with Baldur's Gate 3. But I want to gently, preemptively push back against players taking that excitement and using it to apply criticism or a raised standard to RPGs going forward. Okay, so that's one of 10. We'll dig into it a little bit, but I just want to first say the best thing to say instead of this would have been nothing. You don't need to do this in video games, in entertainment in general, in any business that sells a product to a customer. You should never come out and be like, oh, are you enjoying our competitor's product? Well, don't expect anything like that from us. That's not a good look. Like you shouldn't do that. This didn't need to be said, but like I said earlier, it's just a Twitter L. Like no big deal until IGN grabbed it. But let's jump into this a little bit further. I do want to follow up his second one because I think this is why the tweet doesn't work. He says, you can't separate a game from the process used to build it. So let's look at what Larian is taking into the development and final version of this game. Okay, first off, let's take that initial part. You can't separate a game from the process used to build it. Like hell you can't. Most consumers are going to separate the game from the process used to build it. The majority of people on the PSN click and download or walking into Best Buy to get a copy on Xbox of a game, they're not thinking about who the studio is, the size of the studio, the budget they had, what sort of economic turmoil their country was in at the time of making the game. They're going to compare it to the games they've played before or the other games that are out, and they're going to make a decision on if they want this game. They're going to play the game, decide if they liked it or not, just based on the game itself. So the idea that consumers need to keep in mind how a game gets made, I don't think that's, one, accurate, two, achievable. Like, just imagine, go to the grocery store, go to the toilet paper aisle, look at all the toilet paper. Do you know how big the factories are for each brand? Do you know how clean the factories are for each brand? Probably not. Most people do not know that, but we put that on our butthole and we don't look into how it gets made at all. Okay, so the idea that gamers need to have an understanding of the dev cycle, I just don't think that's going to be a reality of the market. It's not a reality in any product. People climb into cars every day that cost tens of thousands of dollars. And if they're not careful, they could irreparably damage that machine. They could seriously injure or worse other people or themselves. And most of us don't have any idea how those cars work or how to build them. It's not on the consumer to understand the process of manufacturing. Anyway, just to run through a few more of these, he just basically lists out the circumstances of Larian building the game, right? So he basically says, here's all the things that Larian has accomplished, or before this, here's all the tools and all the, perks they had going into this. If other studios tried this, there's a chance they could, not only fail, but go bankrupt, disappear, right? So he ends it by saying this: if you shout that every RPG should be like this going forward, you have no excuse. You've not just missed the point, you've created the I'm not going to finish it because I'll just say, like I said earlier, I think this is a bad take. People don't care. And I don't mean that to be rude. I mean, if people play a game they like, they're going to compare it to other games. And that's been going on forever, right? Go back to the 80s and 90s. People had favorite games. They like this game. That game's trash. That game's good. Nobody cares how much it costs to make the game, how many people worked on it. When a game comes out that people like that game. So, having said all that, I'm not a reaction channel. I am going to play some clips here. Not the whole thing. I will link this video in the, I'll pin it to the comments or something, or put it in the description if you want to watch the whole thing. I'm just going to pick out some highlights here just to discuss them, and we can get into it. I will say this off the rip. The first half of this video, I basically agree with what he's saying. It's kind of what I was saying about the thread, right? That why shouldn't gamers have high expectations? It's the second half of this video I want to focus on, where I think IGN kind of missed the plot on this. And I do want to say as well, this is Destin Legary. He has his own YouTube channel that's pretty successful, that I actually have watched some videos on. I think he did some pretty good coverage during the ABK Microsoft deal, talking about some of the reporting and just kind of keeping everyone informed on it. I thought it was interesting. So this is not really like, if this had been on his channel, I probably wouldn't make this video. But I think using IGN as a bully pulpit is a very different thing than using a personal YouTube channel. IGN doing rage bait like this, I think, matters more than what you normally see on YouTube because of their size, their assumed legitimacy in like the gaming space, not only with gamers, but with developers and publishers. And so I think it needs to be taken seriously. So I want to look at the back half of this and take a look at this. But let's start here at the front.
Baldur's Gate 3 is taking the internet by storm. At its peak, a whopping 800,000 plus concurrent players were playing this weekend, catapulting it to the number 8 most played of all time spot.
Okay, well, let me just jump ahead.
Taking it a step further, why shouldn't some AAA developers raise their own standards?
And like I said, I agree with this so far, right? The first half of this is pretty good. Let me back this up. I do want to be fair to IGN and to Destin more so.
Why shouldn't customers have raised standards? Taking it a step further, why shouldn't some AAA developers raise their own standards? Are we really going to pretend that consumers shouldn't be a little upset right now and hoping for an improvement in the industry going forward? Rockstar just announced a $50 conversion of the original Red Dead Redemption for the PlayStation 4 and Switch that has no mention of a 4K update, no mention of 60 FPS, and no mention.
Okay, he's not wrong about Red Dead. I've on record on this channel saying that sucks, right? The publisher putting out a conversion like that. Mainly, it's not so much I want a remake or a remaster of Red Dead. But here's the thing. As disappointed as I am not to get a remake, I don't think that a Rockstar game being sold as is for $50 on a platform like Nintendo Switch is indicative of an unhealthy industry. Rockstar is one of the premier developers. I wish I was getting a PC or, current gen console version of Red Dead 1 that looked as good or better than Red Dead 2. But again, I'm just not going to buy this. I don't think I don't think you can look at a Rockstar conversion as something that's like, well, Baldur's Gate proves that, they're taking advantage of us. But let's keep going. Let's take a look at a few other games they talk about here in this video. All right. So we've got Star Wars Jedi Survivor.
Star Wars Jedi Survivor, when released on PC, had furious fans citing new.
So IGN talking about this, just by the way, IGN gave this game a 9. They gave it a 9. All right, and then here we've got Destiny 2.
Destiny 2 just released a State of the Game blog saying, amongst other things, that they don't have the resources to release new ritual armor every season. But that same studio manages to create new armor sets in the shop for up to...
Stop playing Destiny. I don't understand why people are still playing Destiny. All I ever hear about this game is how terrible it's managed, and I don't understand. All I ever hear about it is how predatory the pricing is. They're vaulting content. They're constantly adding new updates that cost money, but people keep playing it. I don't know, like if you keep buying the thing, they're going to keep selling it to you. And then we've got Diablo 4.
Diablo 4 unabashedly has several character skins priced at $20 each and just released their first season that had a patch that was so poorly thought out that the developers had to have an emergency live stream to apologize.
Diablo 4. IGN gave it a 9. IGN gave it a 9. Gave it a 9. In fact, let's take a look here, because one thing that bothers me about this video is IGN talking about the terrible state of AAA gaming. Let's take a look here at another article from IGN this year. So let's see. So August 11th, 2023 was the last time this was updated. So just a few days ago. And if we come over here, we're going to get... Let's start. Oh, I spoiled the first one. All of these games, we've got 46 games here. 8 or higher. 24 of these games got an 8. The rest are 9s and 10s. I think 3 of them got a 10. But we've still got, we're 8 months into the year. We've got 4 months left. AAA games never been worse. IGN has given out 46 8 or highers. Let's look at this. Advanced Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp, 8. Age of Wonders 4, 8. Amnesia the Bunker, 8. Atomic Heart, 8. 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8. Resident Evil Village VR, 8. Sons of the Forest Early Access. Sons of the Forest Early Access, 8. Trepang 2, 8. If I had a game get an 8 in early access, we're done. No more early access. We got an 8. Like, an 8 is a great number. On a 1 to 10 scale, an 8? That's crazy. They're giving an early access. 1, that they're reviewing an early access game. But 2, that they're going to give it an 8. An 8? Like, they're selling you a game that's in beta, basically. That's marketing like, oh, this game's an 8. It's so amazing. Viewfinder, 8. Wild Hearts, 8. Wolong Fallen Dynasty, 8. WWE 2K23, 8. Bayonetta Origins, 9. 9. Diablo 4, 9. Final Fantasy X, 9. Fire Emblem Engage, 9. Gran Turismo 7 VR, 9. Hi-Fi Rush, 9. Hogwarts Legacy, 9. Look at this. These are all 9s. 9s. 9. Another 9? That's a 9. That just came out. This just came out. It's a 9. Here's a 9. There's another 9. There's a 9. There's another 9. There's a 10. Got our first 10 here. Got a 10. Got a 10. We've already given out 3 10s. I mean, I don't know how you can give out 46 games came out so far this year that IGN thinks are very great. And we've still got Spider-Man 2, Starfield on the horizon, Alan Wake 2. We've got Armored Core 6 from FromSoft. There are so many games still to come that I'm not even mentioning. Like, you don't think there's another 10 coming out this year for them? There's definitely a whole slew of 8s. I promise you that. So I don't know where they're getting that AAA gaming is in this dire state. And to bring up Jedi Survivor and Diablo after giving them 9s, IGN helped sell those games, and now they want to tell you about how bad they are and how predatory. Okay.
Okay, you need a more comparable RPG example of why fans are heralding Baldur's Gate 3 as a breath of fresh air? Look no further than Mass Effect Andromeda, which was widely panned.
Sorry, my face is tired from dealing with everything.
Or
Mass Effect Andromeda was widely panned, and it paused the whole series. I mean, that game came out in 2017, which was when Larian even began working on Baldur's Gate 3.
Everything.
Or Cyberpunk 2077 that made promises about last-gen game consoles that it couldn't keep. It took CDPR almost a year to get that all sorted out.
Okay, and I want to point this out about Cyberpunk, because here's the thing. You know IGN is going to hype up and cover Phantom Liberty. And if you watch this channel, you know I have a bone to pick about Cyberpunk, okay? Because it's not just, oh, they made a bad game, but you can go and look at the lawsuits from investors on being misled. You can look at the founder of Open Critic putting out an open letter talking about how CD Projekt Red misled reviewers and tried to hide the fact of how it was going to run on consoles. They released an awful, broken, buggy game, and people just look the other way now. A year later, it's all fine. The Cyberpunk 2077 brand has not been damaged at all. They had a successful Netflix show on it. They're about to release this DLC everyone is hyped for. I don't understand how you can complain about the state of these games, and then when something comes out like Cyberpunk that is that broken, we can all let them have their comeback story and give them all the money in the world for the DLC. If the state of AAA games bothers you, you should not have let Cyberpunk survive. That should be dead and buried, and CD Projekt Red should be working on a rebirth of The Witcher or a brand new IP trying to win back the goodwill and dollar of the consumer.
I'll make this as clear as possible to contextualize how fans are feeling. It feels like money has become more important than the core experience for fans.
These companies want to make money, you don't say. Look, there's never been a time where it wasn't about money. At the birth of arcades, it was about money. All throughout early game design with home consoles, it's been about money. Yes, there are passionate artists who work on these things and people who love gaming, but that's as true today. There are passionate artists at every major studio. I promise you, there are people who love making games, but at the end of the day, it is a business. It is about making money. So yes, they are going to try to make money. That's just the reality of it. And I think it's disingenuous to act like the staff at IGN is not well aware of the business side of gaming and the fact that this industry exists because they make money.
Xavier's tweet was well-intentioned, and he went on to add a lot of important context, but I think it misses the perspective of the consumer. We don't know anything about game design or how hard it is. We just know that Destiny is deleting hundreds of dollars worth of expansions when they feel like it, that Diablo is constantly reminding us to buy skins in their store, and most PC ports have been abysmal lately. Remember, that tweet was made nearly a month before Baldur's Gate 3 blew up, and it was still contentious with fans speaking up about their frustrations and developers chiming in to say what felt like game development is hard, you don't get it, be quiet.
I don't know that anyone said that game development is hard. You don't know what you're talking about. Shut up. Didn't see that tweet. I did see the tweets, that he included here at the beginning. Zoliver's tweet is still up. I couldn't find all the other devs that are supposedly jumping on this. I went through the replies on that tweet. Moment of silence for my time. It's 15, 20 minutes just reading angry gamers yelling at Zoliver, which, by the way, don't harass devs. Just don't harass people in general, online or otherwise. It's not cool. Just ignore someone if you disagree with them, really. There's no reason to, yell at people like that. I think there's a space for discussion, but not aggression. But I just want to point out, I can't find all of the other developer anger or panic or fear or jealousy or whatever you want to call it that this video is attributing to a bunch of developers. I've seen a couple of people. And so I think it's fair to say that some developers are, not wanting to be compared to Baldur's Gate 3, but to act like it's an industry-wide trend, I think that's stretching it a little bit.
Vampire Survivors came along and took the internet by storm last year. Do I need to bring up Elden Ring again? But that tweet blew up in the development sphere, and frankly, the pushback is just ridiculous. Developers should be looking at what Baldur's Gate 3 did and trying to replicate where they can, not jumping up to defend games that are cramming in practices that fans are getting fed up with. And make no mistake.
I want to push back. I wanted to play that out for you to push back a little bit. I don't know that fans are getting fed up with the practices. So he mentions the idea of microtransactions in the video as an issue. People buy microtransactions, and that's what developers, or I should say the studios, the publishers, are looking at. And that's just reality. We don't have to like microtransactions. I wish games didn't have microtransactions. I would love to pay less money for a product, of course, right? And I think there's a discussion to be had about a free-to-play game like Fortnite having expensive microtransactions, and then a game that costs full price having microtransactions. I was recently very disappointed. In Street Fighter 6, I was very excited to get a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle costume, and then they're $15 each, so I didn't get one. I got one of the masks. It's 200 fighter coins. I wanted something. I like turtles. So there's room for discussion around microtransactions. I know that a lot of core gamers, maybe you if you're watching this, certainly me, don't always want to see microtransactions in games, but the fact is they're not in there. They're not putting them in sir, no one's buying the microtransactions. And they're put more in. They're putting them in because they're selling. So to say people are fed up with these purchases, if that were true, they would filter them out. They wouldn't be in games. Because do you remember the push just last year for NFTs in games? And Ubisoft put NFTs in Breakpoint? You see that proliferating wildly across the industry? No, because people said no. People did not purchase NFTs in games, and studios very quickly realized, well, if people aren't going to buy them, we're not going to put them in. So when you see microtransactions in games left, right, and center, it's because people are purchasing them. And if you're not a consumer who wants to purchase microtransactions, I get why you'd be frustrated and not like that. But the only solution is not to purchase the games with microtransactions, or just not to purchase the microtransactions. You have to get past the FOMO of the thing and only pay for things you want to support. And that might mean going to the indie game scene. It might mean skipping games like Diablo that you know are going to have very expensive stores and battle passes and all that kind of stuff. And I say that I don't play Diablo. I don't play Diablo or Destiny because, I think the way they price those games out and the way they sell to you, it's not to my taste. It's not to my liking. It's not how I want to experience a game. On the other hand, I do play Warzone and I play Street Fighter. And I bought the Fighter Pass and the Battle Pass for Warzone. Not every time, but if I'm playing it heavily and there's something in there I want, we're almost a year after launch. I'll throw you $10. I'm going to play you twice a week with the squad. No problem. I've totally lost my train of thought. I'm just rambling here now. The point is, they make money off microtransactions. And as long as people buy those games, they're not going to stop. As long as that's the positive reinforcement they're getting, because that's the goal, right? Is money. So for every person tweeting, I'm so tired of microtransactions, there's 500 microtransactionings happening. Like, I don't know what else to tell you guys. Like, you have to stop buying microtransactions or they're going to keep putting them in the game. I don't know. You could protest all you want, but to act like publishers are doing it because even though no one wants it is false. The only language these companies speak, these publicly traded companies with shareholders, the only language they speak is spending habits. It's how you give them money. So if they're getting all this money off microtransactions, they're going to do that. And so people can get on the internet and say, gamers don't want microtransactions. But the studio is sitting there with bags of cash. Like, where'd this come from then? No one is duct taping a controller to your hand and forcing you to, type in your credit card. People are choosing to purchase these things. Unfortunately, the onus is not on developers who are making a game and the publisher decides how they're going to monetize it. Or tells them you need to come up with a monetization strategy. Okay? And they do the ones that work. There are plenty of games that come out that don't have microtransactions, but a lot of the biggest games, a lot of the ones that people get most hyped for, the multiplayers, the co-ops, they are going to have microtransactions because consumers purchase them. And I can hate it and you can hate it, but I don't know how you change that. How do you get gamers to stop buying this stuff? Like, how are we ever going to convince publicly traded publishers to make less money?
Mistake about it, these decisions impact game design. Many games are utilizing battle passes and player engagement as a metric of success. For a player, that means more grindy missions. That means more reminders to stop in the shop. It means a boring grind because keeping players engaged is a...
Okay. They're trying to keep players engaged, so they give you a boring grind. Part of this discussion, I think, is when you have people who cover video games for a living, they don't want to do the grind. But for a lot of people getting off work after a long day, the grind is like what it is. When I was playing The Division 2, yes, it was repetitive for a while, but I liked that habit. I liked coming home, running a few missions, getting my new guns, doing in-game, fighting Black Tusk. That was fun. And then when I got bored, when it became a grind, I just left the game. We're not hamsters on wheels. If the game is grindy and you don't like it, stop playing it. Stop giving them money.
A key metric. Many of the people who came out to talk about why Baldur's Gate 3 shouldn't be the new standard have since walked back those statements, and I'm glad, because if the industry...
I wonder why somebody would walk back a statement on gaming Twitter. I'm sure it wasn't a dog pile.
Can't take a good hard look at what's going wrong, why fans reacted the way they did to Elden Ring and Baldur's Gate 3, and then make impactful changes, we're screwed. Also, people seem to be using the fact that Larian is a big studio against them, the fact that they had a long development cycle against them.
The point he's going to make here, and I'm going to link the video if you want to watch it, but the point he's going to make here is there's all these other big studios, right? BioWare, Bungie, Activision, Blizzard. They're all these huge studios with plenty of money to make these kind of games. Totally agree. I've already said in the beginning of this, the tweet was in bad taste, and it was a bad take. Gamers should have high standards for games. You should. But to act like it's developers who don't want to achieve your high standards is just wrong. As long as gamers are buying the microtransactions, publishers are going to ask developers to put them in the game. And developers need that funding to make the game.
I implore AAA devs to look at these games that are being celebrated and look at your pipeline to see why the consumer is getting frustrated about the experience I outlined in this video. And obviously,
hardcore gamers are likely very frustrated with the push to microtransactions and heavy engagement and long play times when you want to play a ton of games and you want to buy all the games and you want to jump from title to title. I totally get it. That's how I am. But the industry is responding to market forces. These games are making a ton of money. They are holding players. I promise you, if the cosmetic shop in games like Fortnite or Warzone or Diablo weren't working, these studios would do something else. So to say that, to make it seem like all gamers are frustrated with these practices, I don't know, man. People are still buying this stuff at a time when backwards compatibility and deeper libraries and indie games and AA games have never been more available. So maybe the truth is in the middle a little bit. Yes, there is a hardcore segment of very online gamers that are core, that don't like this kind of stuff. But there's also a large audience that does like it. And maybe there just has to be a realization that not every game is made for you or for me. But if they're popular, if they're making money, if people are enjoying it time after time, then it is what it is. Like, why shouldn't that audience be served? People love Call of Duty and they love FIFA every year and they love Diablo for some reason. If they didn't, they wouldn't spend money on it. And for the record, like I said earlier, I don't play Diablo. I don't spend a ton of money on microtransactions. I don't think you should. I don't think they're inherently wrong, though. I mentioned Street Fighter 6 and the headband. I've bought several Warzone battle passes. I've bought one battle pass for Rocket League. I've purchased the Deep Rock Galactic cosmetic sets just to support that amazing, incredible ongoing game. I don't think the idea of microtransactions are inherently bad. I think there can be predatory pricing. I think that in that case, though, just don't purchase it. The only thing these developers are going to listen to is how you spend your money. If you buy all the microtransactions on the store and then complain about it on Twitter, yeah, the PR person might see that, but the accountant is also going to see the money coming in. So they're going to go, no, microtransactions are very popular. People keep buying them. Just like McDonald's keeps making hamburgers because people keep buying them.
Because telling me how hard it is when you're breaking profit and revenue records isn't a super compelling argument from the customer's perspective. Is Baldur's Gate 3 an outlier? Yes, but I for one wish it could become the standard.
That's the other thing. I don't think Baldur's Gate 3 is an outlier. And like I said, I haven't played it, but from what I've seen of it, I've watched some streams, I've heard some reviewers I trust talk about it. My understanding is it is a phenomenal game. It is a phenomenal CRPG, not normally a genre I play, but to act like there aren't we just had Tears of the Kingdom, Final Fantasy 16, Elden Ring last year. IGN's given out 3 10s this year already, a whole slew of 9s and 24 8s. To act like we're not getting great games is wild. And to act like there aren't a ton of developers making great art and incredible products is disingenuous of a company like IGN. They know there are a ton of developers making great products. They know that amazing video games come out last year, this year. They're still coming in the next. We're about to ramp up into an amazing season of games where I think Baldur's Gate 3 is going to be hard-pressed to stay in the conversation when Spider-Man and Starfield drop. And I hope it does. I hope it gets nominated. It looks like a game that deserves it. I wish Larian all the best success. But for IGN to act like we're in a desert of video games and Larian's the first drop of water they've had in years is wildly, wildly disingenuous. And I think, like I said earlier, this is just gamer rage bait to drive engagement. And I think it's not, I don't think it's a good take in the back half of this video. Yes, the tweet should never have been made. It was a bad take. You should never ask consumers of anything to lower their standards. That's foolish. But this take from IGN is unnecessarily bellicose and aggressive.
And being told to shut up because I don't know game design doesn't feel super constructive. But hey.
By the way, if you've made it this far, like the video. And also, if you know Who told Destin to shut up because he doesn't understand game design? Throw that in the comments.
No game design doesn't feel super constructive, but hey, I'm just some idiot on the internet who doesn't know anything about game design. I guess I'll just go buy my horse armor and call it a day. Enjoy your $20 on top of your $100 for the collector's edition on top of your $15 for the battle pass. What do you...
I mean, I think as repetitive as he's being, I've got to be equally repetitive. Don't buy the microtransactions. Don't buy them. Don't buy the horse armor. Don't buy the battle pass unless you want to. If you like it, buy it. If not, you've got to drop the FOMO on this stuff. And I think part of that is people who want to be in the gaming conversation, and I totally get it. And I'm sure it's even much harder if you're a reporter at IGN and not somebody with a little side hustle, tiny little YouTube channel like me. But I totally understand the need to have this stuff. But that's not the reality for most consumers. Most people are spending money on this stuff because they're only buying a handful of games a year. They're mainlining a certain game. But if battle passes bother you, if microtransactions bother you, if you want to send a message to Blizzard, stop giving them money. They will change. They will 180 their business model so fast your controller will spin. But to act like you're powerless, like you have to give them the $100 for the collector's edition, like you have, like the idea that you have to buy the collector's edition, have to get the battle pass, have to get the DLC. I don't know how that can be their fault. Like, is it Lamborghini's fault for having a super expensive car? I mean, you could buy a cheaper one. They make a $60 version or a $70 version of these games. You don't need the collector's edition. You don't need the microtransactions. And if you don't like these practices, don't spend the money. You wouldn't go to a buffet and just eat plate after plate after plate until you were just ill from overeating and then blame the kitchen staff because they didn't stop cooking. You got ill because of your own gluttony. So if you buy every microtransaction and every collector's edition and every battle pass a company puts out, that's a positive reinforcement for the publisher. Of course, they're going to do that again. You keep giving them money. That's the only language they speak.
Because I get why you're frustrated, and it's really frustrating to see people not saying, hey.
That's the call to action I'm talking about. With the rising triumphant music, and I get why you're frustrated. I don't know. Why can't... It's just disappointing to me. Why couldn't Baldur's Gate 3 come out and we just say, hey, it's a great game. This is awesome. But instead, IGN decided we gotta stir this up. And this is a story. And every other AAA game maker doesn't want to do games this good. I don't know, man. Not in the year of Tears of the Kingdom.
Maybe we could learn a thing or two from Larian. I'm enduring Baldur's Gate 3, and I hope game development continues to grow from where it is today.
That's kind of the whole scoop. And I don't normally do reactions like this or deep dives into stories, but I thought because of IGN's size and influence, this was an important conversation to have, or at least something worth analyzing, because I don't want to see increased hostility between game makers and game players, because I love video games and I love that there are people who know how to make them, because I sure don't. And when I don't like the way a game's made or the microtransactions, I don't buy it. I think people have got to stop pre-ordering and buying games day one. I get wanting to be in on the conversation, but you can be a day late. Just wait for reviews. We could have all known how buggy Fallen Order was if we just waited. And yeah, that's it. I should go.